have no idea how much I enjoyed that. We fit together so perfectly. It's like we were made for each other. He leaned back against the wall, needed a moment to catch his breath. That good, huh? Lizzie stood up and gave him a hug before putting her bra and shirt back on. Wow, that felt amazing. Yeah, no shit. I know I want to do this and so much more. Maybe give me a break, though. Lizzie giggled mischievously and took his hand and pulled him from the alley. Okay, but not too long. Soon they headed back out of the alley. John felt like everyone must have noticed, but no one even looked at them. Actually, things outside seemed different. He frowned and glanced at Lizzie, who paused for a moment, then nodded. Is something wrong? The sound in the distance aren't normal. There's too much tension. As soon as she said that, he realized that she was right. It didn't sound like people talking and having fun. They were upset about something. They glanced at each other briefly, nodded, and then headed towards the source of the commotion. Soon they arrived at a group of people clustered around their line of police tape. He could see a few cops moving within it, and spinning lights lit the entire scene in a strange colour, but he couldn't tell what happened. Lizzie frowned and pondering something. She nodded her head towards the crowd. So he headed forward to lean more. He found a familiar face in the crowd and tapped her shoulder. Hey, what's going on? Oh God, it's horrible. Someone from our school was killed. Who? His face was taken off entirely. They're still trying to identify him. Oh shit, do they know who did it? They say I can't believe this, but they said it was some girl from our school. She stabbed 2 of the police officers, like with a knife. They were rushed to the hospital. Wow, what about her? They shot her, seriously. Or at least that's what I heard. I just got here in time to see the bodies before they covered it up. But I didn't see the violent part. How horrible. Thanks for telling me, though. His classmate went back to staring at the crime scene, so he let himself drift back to Lizzie. Her eyes had grown serious, so he followed her as she put some distance between them and the crowd. Normally, I would have guessed it was you, but no, it wasn't. I would kill anyone who got between us, anyone you wanted me to, but I wasn't involved with this. Do you have some idea, though? There was another girl, not like me, but similar. In our school? Really? Her mother knew Abby. They got kicked out of the KoiTec program together. For the same reason? Being pregnant? Oh, you have to be kidding me. I never liked her. We never really spoke, but I think she could have been capable of this. Then what do we do? I think we should go. Stay away from this. I'm not arguing with you there. She went with him to his door and then kissed her goodnight. But they both knew that things hadn't been entirely settled, not yet. He tried to watch the news, but it was all meaningless. Speculations about what could have caused the girl to murder her boyfriend so brutally. Jesus, that could have been you, man. That could have been you. And she took his face. What is she, Harley Quinn? With the Joker's face, if anyone knows that? Well, she didn't cut Joker's face off. I'm pretty sure he did that himself. But still! Though there were still more questions when it went to bed. He found they slipped away from him and he fell asleep remarkably and quickly. Ah! What the hell? That night he had a dream that Lizzie had murdered both his classmates. He saw her standing over their torn open bodies covered in their blood. She saw him and barred her teeth in a smile and then kissed him, and then it wasn't a bad dream. Are you kidding me? Oh man, that's a fucking sexy dream. The next morning, John woke feeling the best he'd felt in a long time. He had to remind himself that most people would be in mourning over the... So, I don't feel like I need to read this. I mean, this episode... I think I'm going to break this episode up without the, fancy stuff. Wait, John, I hope you're doing alright after the incidents. I understand that boy who died was a friend of yours. That felt like an eternity ago. But he realised that it was more or less true. He shook his head slowly. An old friend, but yeah, it's hard to believe. Well, I thought we should have a conversation. It's okay, Miss Smith. I feel like I'm doing okay. There are other students who probably need help more than I do. I'm afraid I must insist. Lie down. Ooh. He almost defied her then, but in the end decided to do as she asked. Therapy session always made him feel better. It couldn't hurt. No reason to draw attention to himself or Lizzie after all. Alright, what do you want me to talk about? My feelings about the incident? No, there's no time for that today. Huh? I need you to relax immediately. John began to settle back onto the couch, letting her words become a meaningless hum. And for the first time he realised how wrong that was. He lay there, apparently relaxed, as she tried to think back to their past therapy sessions. The more he thought about them, the more he realised the ominous pattern. He could barely remember any details. They would chat for a while, and then the rest of their session was just a white haze. Ready? I need you to remain calm and come with me. She spoke flatly, as if she expected to be obeyed without question. What was this? Some sort of hypnosis? Well? Realizing she might get upset, John slowly got to his feet. He wasn't sure how he was supposed to act, but he settled for straightforward obedience. Delayed response. Have you been taking... Oh my god! There is something to control people with. Have you been taking your Paxitine lately? He gave a half shrug and stared back at Miss Smith, frowned, then she shook her head and gestured for him to follow. I suppose it doesn't matter. All this is normal. You want to follow me and await instructions? John had no choice but to do as she left the building, but inside he was panicking. What was he supposed to do now? If he'd seen Lizzie, he could have begged her to follow with his eyes, but he didn't see even a hint of her, not even watching from around the corner. They walked outside and to the parking lot, where Miss Smith opened the passenger seat door of her car and gestured for him to get in. He stepped inside and tried to keep the tension off his face, instead just staring forward. Jeez. They didn't drive very far, just to a warehouse a few blocks from the school. It looked half abandoned, but when the car approached the gates and then one of the garage's doors opened for her, inside there was multiple armed men in a grey body armour. He didn't see any insignias or logos, whatever, on them, or any indication of who they worked for. Why don't you take a seat, John? I don't fucking want to. Have you seen this place? This is some type of lab where you do experiments on people and kill them and shit. Man, this Resident Evil type stuff. You're gonna turn me into a zombie, I'm gonna bite somebody, and then boom, the whole world's infected. He got out of the car and to obey. Only then he spotted the blank white table and two chairs placed in the centre of the warehouse floor. Sitting down. Okay then. Damn. Choking on myself. Choking on my words. Ugh. He tried to stare blankly at the table, even as he analysed what it held. There were 2 metal briefcases, and just to make things strange, a box of surgical gloves. Oh my God! Remain calm, but focus on me, John. You're aware of your surroundings, but willing to accept what I say. Huh? Not the most elegant of lies, but it seems to work. Miss Smith barely even glanced at him, instead pulling on a pair of surgical gloves. We've brought you here for your own protection, John. I'm afraid your girlfriend is not who you believe she is. Lizzie? What's the problem? Is she okay? I'm afraid not. Not even close. Years ago, KoiTec was an innovative company on the very forefront of a biochemical research. Oh my God, they are umbrella! But I'm afraid some of the company founders were less than ethical. What does any of this have to do with us? Shut up, I'm getting there. Testing standards were rather lax. In particular, there was a certain test of a mood drug that should probably never have been certified. Dozens of lawsuits were settled for families that have suffered in the test. That is right and good. KoiTec acknowledged these mistakes in the past. Unfortunately, some of those mistakes were more enduring. For a pregnant woman to participate in these tests without disclosure in their pregnancies, they were of course removed as soon as their conditions was realized, but it was too late for the embryos. One became completely non-viable and was a stillborn. There conflict evidence around the second, but it appears the boy may have committed suicide at a young age, but we are we're concerned with the last 2. One of them was the murderer who police put down last night, and the last was Lizzie Doss. Huh? You're saying Lizzie has some kind of condition? Early investigations suggest both girls turned out normal, so the matter was closed, but recent events make it seem very likely that both of them were deeply disturbed. I'll be blunt, the girl not remotely stable. She's a danger to herself and others. Did they really think that would work? That he would just nod and accept the story with guards all around them, armed like a paramilitary force? Then again, perhaps she was counting on her therapy to have a controlling effect. Either way, all he could do was keep up his act. There was no doubt the truth in what she was saying, and he needed to learn more. Then what about you? What do you want me to do? Why can't all you guards take care of it? John, we don't want to hurt the girl, not at all. We want to help her. We would prefer she came in quietly. The implement threat hung in the air. John swallowed and nodded. Then what am I supposed to do? The girl trusts you. If you can administer a sedative to her, then we hope we can medicate her without any unnecessary struggles. Miss Smith opened the first metal case, showing him a number of syringes filled with disturbing bright liquids. They looked like chemicals that would melt metal, not ones that should go into anyone's body. If you are receptive to our plan, we will provide you with a variety of options. We have extra strength sedatives here, for example. However, based on the incident yesterday, I personally believe we may have a more extreme option. I would advise you to use this one. Her fingers brushed the last syringe in the briefcase, one filled with a bright red liquid. This is a modified version of the chemical that Lizzie was exposed to in a uterus. Wouldn't that be really dangerous? Her body can the right path. Her body can barely handle the level of exposure she really received. And this isn't the true ending, is it? Oh my god, I fucked up somewhere. Additional dose should lock her down entirely. And you expect me to convince her to be injected with something like that? It does not need to be injected. Autopsy of the other girl indicates that the chemical has a substantial effect on muscle tissues, so an injection into any muscle would be effective. Autopsy. This was one of the. This was more of a conspiracy than he'd imagined, but there was no time for from that now. John simply nodded as if he was thoroughly reasonable. Well, I wanted her to get the help she needs. Are you sure this is this won't hurt her? Let me be honest with you, John. There will likely be some pain for her as her body rejects the chemical, but it may be the only way to ensure that she harms no one and cooperates with treatment. I see. He sat forward and held his head in his hands, as if he needed to think, which he desperately did need to do. Would they really just give him the syringe to let him go? He doubted it. At the very least, they need be keeping him under heavy surveillance. Talking directly to Lizzie would be impossible. In fact, he had to wonder if everything Miss Smith was saying wasn't just a backup plan. It might be no accident that Lizzie was missing. Maybe they were looking for her. But ultimately, he didn't have enough information, and he didn't see any way of getting to the point he needed to reach with so many security forces present. Smith, HQ hasn't responded. Damn it, we'll just proceed with the plan then. No, it's not that. We seem to have lost our connections. Then this case is completely under my authority. John, we're counting on you to end this without anyone else getting hurt. I hope I can do that. You can, I'm sure of it. Then should I... He wasn't sure exactly what approach he was going to take, but then abruptly it didn't matter. Lizzie was in the warehouse, and she winked at him. A second later, one of the soldiers fell with a gargling cry. Everyone's eyes were drawn to him, and then the knife in his eye, except for John. Wait, what? Everyone's eye were drawn to him, and a knife in his eye, except for John, who looked in the other direction. Sliding up behind another of the soldiers, Lizzie drew her axe across his throat. Damn it, take her down. We need her alive. Unfortunately for the soldiers, Lizzie was under no such restrictions. She was enormously outnumbered, but she swept through the group, axe flashing brutally. They began using rubber bullets on her, and though some hit each other, a few managed to strike Lizzie. Lizzie slowed, faltered, and eventually they tackled her to the ground. "John!" she said his name only once while they wrestled her into the chair beside him, but it broke his heart. He wished he could do something, but he was helpless against trained soldiers. They had been cleverly